Hi, I'm Kendall with the Innovation Hub, and in this video, I'll be going over the basic interface of Gravit Designer. Gravit Designer is a web-based vector design program. If I scroll down here, you can actually see some different designs as well as the main uses. So we'll be using Gravit for vector design specifically, so you can see it here. It's also used sometimes for web or also for images and photo editing. To get started, you can click on the button that says Get Started here or at the top right-hand corner. By clicking either of these, you can create your own account or you can create an account using your Google or other accounts. Let's get started. When entering Gravit Designer, you'll be presented with the new design page. I'm going to start off with a 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper or artboard. First up on the tools, we'll go over the selection tools. Here we have the zoom tool, so you can use it You can use it by clicking. You have all your options there. Then you can subtract, so you can zoom out, and you can also plus, which is zooming in, as well as just selecting a specific zoom quality. Next, we have Fit All, which will zoom into the very outside of your sheet. Next, we have the Pan tool, which you can use to move your artboard or your paper around. After that, we actually have the Pointer tool. It's probably the most important from the different types of selection tools. And with this tool, you can select different objects on your sheet and move them around. And underneath that one, you have the Sub-Select tool. The Sub-Select tool you can use to select very specific pieces or points on your different shapes or other things that you create. Next up, we have the Creation tools. The first one in line is the Shape tool. If you click on the arrow next to the Shape tool, you get your option for different things that you can create. So again, you have a rectangle, ellipse, polygon, triangle, and star. After that, you have your drawing tools. So first up is the Pen tool, which you can use to create your own shapes, as well as other more complex things, as well as the Freehand tool, which is more like a pencil. So you can draw pretty much any shape the way that you would like for it to appear. The last one on this category will be the Text tool, and that one is a tool that you can use to type things in. So you can see it here. You just use it for typing. You can also do paragraph boxes, and you also have the ability to change that text up once you've written it. All right, the next set of tools, they are currently not highlighted, or you can see here it's kind of grayed out, but they are your transform tools. So with this tool, you can flip something horizontally that you have selected. With this one, you can flip something vertically. And with the two circular arrows here, you can actually rotate your object. The last set of tools will be the arranging tools. The arranging tools can be used to bring elements forward or backwards so that you can arrange which order they appear. So there's a good example here where you can just select one. By clicking it, you can bring it forward or push it back. The same with the next one over, you can take things backwards. So these two are essentially the inverse of each other. This one can send elements backwards. This one can send elements forward. Those are the basic tools that you'll be using for Gravit Designer. You can also get more into detail by going to gravit.io for more information on how to use different tools, as well as using YouTube for a different source. I will talk about how you can create shapes. So the shape tool here is what you use. So you can click on the shape tool. You have these options underneath. We'll start off with a rectangle. And to actually create this rectangle, I click, drag my mouse, and then I release. I can do the same with the ellipse tool or the circle or oval maker. And you just click, drag, then release. I'll do a polygon next. I'm going to click, drag, and release. And I'll also show you a way to make sure that stays completely straight when you create it with the next one, which is the star. So if I click, you see that it just moves around as I move the mouse, but if I hold the shift button, it'll help me keep it in place while I create the shape. So now I have my star. Now I want to change the color of them all. I'm going to select them using the pointer tool. I just clicked it. If I hold shift, I can click the next one. And continuing to hold shift, I'm going to select the other ones as well. Then over here on the right, you can see where it says Fields, and you just see this gray color. If I click on that, it gives me all of these other color options. So if I move this down, there's no way for me to move it down so you guys can see it a little better. That's okay. You can see I have all these different colors to choose from, and I'll just make them all the same blue. All right, the next thing I want to go over is the basic way that you can manipulate the shapes. And you can do that by using the subselect tool. The subselect tool is the second option underneath the pointer tool. And if you click on that and then click on your shape, you'll notice that these new reddish orange little circles appear, and you can actually use those to change up the corners of your shape. So you can see there it's no longer a regular square, it is now a rounded square or a rounded rectangle. You can do something similar with the circles, but it works a little bit differently because the circle already has all of its curves. So you can actually open up the circle. So that's a different option under subselect that you now have. With the polygon here, you have another option that you have. So you can actually pull and push things to edit it further. So if I push this out, you can see I made an interesting star. You can also twist them. You can see there how you got a little bit of a interesting, almost shutter, like in a camera shape. And lastly, the star works in the exact same way. So you can move things around just like you do with the polygon. So that's how you can, in a more detailed way, edit these shapes to create new, interesting shapes. The last thing to go over here is the modifying options that you have. So if I select this rounded rectangle, I go up to Modify. I can go down to Path and convert to Path. And you see now it looks a little bit different than before. What I can do from here is actually move the pieces of the shape independently. So now it isn't even a rectangle anymore. You can do the same with the other shapes. So for an example, with the circle here, or I guess the Pac-Man circle now, you can go to Modify, Path, Convert to Path, and you have even more options with this one because of the way that I opened up the circle. And notice to actually move the shapes again, you'll want to go back to the pointer tool. There we are. And those are the basics of working with shapes. Using drawing tools, you can actually find them all underneath the pen tool here. If you click on the triangle arrow that's next to it, you can get to the pen tool and the freehand tool. We'll start with the pen tool. And what's neat about the pen tool is you can create any shape that you want. And how you do that is, I'll just go ahead and scroll down a little bit, is by clicking. So if I click here, click here, click here, click here, you can see I'm starting to create a shape. And then you can just click back to the original, the start point, to make a shape. So you can get all kinds of really neat shapes by using the pen tool. Something else you can do with the pen tool is actually make curved lines. So if you click and drag, instead of just clicking, so click, drag your mouse, click, drag your mouse, and then back to the beginning. Again, to make the curved lines, you click, drag your mouse, click, drag your mouse, click, drag your mouse, click, drag your mouse, and click, drag your mouse. You can get some really interesting shapes that are a little more on the organic side. So that's pretty much the basics of how the pen tool works. Going to the freehand tool, which is your basic drawing tool, works a little bit more like a pencil. I'm going to arrow down, freehand, click here, and you'll notice clicking doesn't work the same as it does with the pen tool. With this one, you have to click and drag the mouse around to create whatever shape it is that you want. So there's an example. You can write things. So see if I can write a K. So there we go. Just wrote out my name using the mouse. The freehand tool, if you want it to be more precise, it would work best with a touch screen or possibly with a tablet or something that you can use a pen to actually write or create your designs with. So you can kind of see here, it works really well with nondescript shapes, so things that may not actually be something. So you can see just some squiggles here and there. You can do straight-ish lines. It's definitely easier to do straight lines with the pen tool, but that's essentially what you can do with the pencil or freehand tool. Because the pen tool is a little bit harder to grasp when using the tool, there are several games that exist. One is the one that you see here. By looking up pen tool games on Google or any other search engine, you should be able to find the game here, or possibly even the game here. And through those games, you should be able to learn how to use the pen tool much easier. And of course, you can always also watch videos on Gravit.io or on YouTube. So the Boolean path commands can be used to create more interesting and complex shapes. Much like the pen tool, you can get complicated shapes, but what's neat about the Boolean path commands is that you can create them by using other shapes. So I'll show you how that works. So before you can use the Boolean path commands, you actually have to select the shapes. So you have to have at least 2 shapes selected. I'm going to use the pointer tool and select one here, hold Shift, and select the other one. Now all of these options over here that were not visible before are now visible. The Boolean path commands exist underneath these 2 overlapping squares. If you arrow down, you see the first option, which is the one we'll use here, called Union. And what this will do is merge these 2 shapes together. So now you can see that these 2 shapes have become one. The next one here, I'll show you a different way that you can select both objects. You can draw a marquee. So if I click and drag over both shapes, they are both now selected. So that's another way you can use the pointer tool to select things. Now, if I go back up to the options, the next one is subtract. So what this one will do is actually subtract the front object from the back object. So you'll see here that the square in the front has been subtracted from the circle on top. Again, making an interesting shape. Next, go ahead and select them the original way, and holding Shift, have both of them selected. The next one I'm going to do is the intersect. So intersect will give you the overlap of the 2 shapes you have selected. So here I'll actually select intersect, and you can see here where the square and the circle overlapped, it created a new smaller shape in the center. You can kind of think of a diagram with overlapping circles as a good example. Lastly, we have the difference. So again, I selected both of my options. I can still do the marquee as well. So click and drag over the shapes. Then I'm going to go back up to the top and choose difference, which is essentially the opposite of intersect. By selecting difference, what you will get are the 2 shapes. Where the overlap is, it will subtract that part of the shape and it will leave everything else. All right, so what's neat about the Boolean path commands is you can make many shapes that will work great for things like logos or other cool design elements that you might want to create in the future. All right, when using text on Gravit, you want to start off by clicking on the text tool. We have it here. Once you click on the text tool, you have 2 options for how to start typing. So if I just click, so you saw me click there, I can just start to text or start to type. So when I start to type, you can see here, it just continues in a straight line unless I click enter. If I click enter, it will go to the next line and I can just keep typing. The other way, so I'm going to click over to the side here. The other way you can use the text tool is by clicking, and you can create a box. So what's nice about this box is if you have a certain area that you don't want it to go outside of, when you click enter, you can make sure it always will appear within this box. So I'm just going to keep going here. You can see how that works there. And that's just using the tool in its basic form. I'll go ahead and delete these. I'll type something in. All right, so I have something typed out here, and I'm going to move it up. Move it around, again, just using the regular pointer tool. And once I have it selected, you'll notice over here on the right, you have options that appear. The first set of options you have are the appearance options. Underneath this, you can actually, underneath appearance, you can use the option for different fonts. So underneath there, you have all of these other options, and you can choose from there what font you want to use for your work, whatever you're working on. That's a good font. You can also change the size of the font. So now it's quite a bit larger. The next thing you can do is actually change the color. So you can see here, it's currently black, and I can choose from the colors we have at present, or I can make my own color at the top. Let's say I want it to be somewhere around there. That's a pretty color. I can also make it lighter or more saturated. There we are. And of course, you can also change the weight. So you can have regular, bold, heavy, and depending on what font you're using, you might even have more options. So I'm going to copy this by using Control-C, Control-V. And again, that was Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. Now I have my second one here. With this one, I'll show you some of the options under decoration. Of course, you have bold, italics. So this one doesn't actually have an italics option. Let's see if I can find another font that does. All right, underneath Open Sans, if I go through decoration, you can see here we have bold, italic, underline, and you can also strike through things. You can do them all at the same time or only one at a time. It's all up to you, depending on what your project is or what it is you're trying to achieve. All right, I'm going to go ahead and copy, Control-C, Control-V. And on this next part, I'll talk a little bit about your options for alignment. So I'll go ahead and go in. So I have entered into it. I double-clicked, and now I can edit it. I have it on 2 lines now. Underneath alignment, you can align them to the left. You can align them center, to the right, and you can also justify. Justify tends to work best if you're working with a larger body of text. So typically, you'll probably only be working with these main 3. You can also change the spacing. So that's the spacing between letters. You can see they're much closer now. And you can change the spacing between words as well as the spacing between the letters. I went ahead and copied again. And on this one, I'm just going to go over a couple of the more advanced things, starting with opacity. So on the more advanced options you have with text, I'll start with the opacity. You can see here, opacity is at 100, and the more you take it the other direction, the more see-through it is. This also works really well on top of things. So if you had a box underneath, so let's just add in a rectangle really quickly here. And I'm going to just send this to the back with my options here for arranging. All right, and again, I'm going to play with that opacity, and you can see how on top of something too, it makes a difference, how it looks. You can also play with things that are called blending modes, and those can give you really interesting overlays. So that one. So depending on what's behind it, you can get different options. You can also do this on top of photos. But again, this is a little bit more advanced, and for more information on how these work, you can look into Gravit Designer's website on gravit.io, or you can go to youtube.com.